little on the nose with the intro song, but couldn't help myself. So here we are, Rajesh, year 2 replay. Last year, we're in the evaluation phases, and here we find ourselves in the thick of implementation. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your extended team for being here with us. I thought I'd start by giving a little bit of context, but I found a better person to do that. JPMorgan Chase, as you know, is a household name. But just sort of by the numbers, $4 trillion in assets. They move $10 trillion a day, a third of which is moved by Rajesh's division in consumer and commercial banking. 290,000 employees, 13,000 just in the CCB division alone. And last year, in 2023, they made a record for any bank, $49.6 billion. So with that, I'll let you hear a little bit more from the CEO himself, Mr. Jamie Dimon.
Bill Gates once said, banking is necessary, banks are not. To what extent could AI or fintech replace traditional banks?
So I think, first of all, I remember him saying banks are dinosaurs. I spoke to him about it in 1997, and obviously he was dead wrong. He probably agree to that. But he's not wrong that technology changes everything. And if anyone is complacent or arrogant or think that because you have a big position today, you have a big position tomorrow, that's a mistake. But then you have to define what is banking. Someone's going to have to hold the money. Someone's going to have to move the money. Someone's going to have to raise the money. Someone's going to have to do research, around money. Those services will still be around, and hopefully we're doing it and using a lot of tech to do a better job at it. But I've always thought it's very possible that some tech thing, disintermediates a piece of that. And I've been writing about, big tech going to our business. We got fintech, but we also have big tech, and they will embed payment systems in there. Some are going to white label banks, kind of what Apple did. They have the right to do that. I'm not against that. I would be against unfair use of their position to dominate us in a business.
So a lot of little kernels in there, Rajesh, and I think it sets the stage for, as we talked about, the massive, just the volume of financial transactions. Moving 10 trillion a day is no small task, and your division responsible for some of the most critical, consumer and peer-to-peer payments. It begs the question: how does your team currently handle and ensure payment durability to prevent data loss in case of system outages or errors?
Yeah, it's basically a combination of a lot of patterns. People must have heard of store and forward, outbox pattern, state management, event sourcing, retry handling. Custom retry handling, failure handling. We have to build our own compensation controls. All of that basically is, at the end of the day, the developer is burdened with a lot of those patterns, right? And what we want in a solution is to basically take all of those things away into a single framework or solution and the developer is basically just focused on and his basically job is to just focus on business logic and work on the payments, basically the payments process itself, right? So that is what we are trying to do, and as part of this exercise, we did a lot of looking around in the industry of what solutions are out there. We looked at Temporal, we looked at Netflix Conductor, we looked at Axon, we looked at Spring's support. And then finally, we basically came to the conclusion that Temporal is the best fit for us, basically, for, especially for payments transactions, right? So it's not that today we are not doing that. I think as we modernize our applications, as we move away from monolithic systems into the cloud, we want to actually modernize the whole payments process itself, make it more reliable, make it more available, make it more resilient, and Temporal is going to be part of that ecosystem.
Very cool. And Jamie mentioned something interesting, right? This notion of, hey, just because you have a big position today doesn't mean you're going to have that position tomorrow. Chase has a very public stance of constantly evaluating and adopting new market technologies. And in that spirit, what have you seen to be some of those challenges when your team is tasked with integrating some of those new market open source technologies, particularly in payments?
Yeah, I mean, we are an open source first company. I mean, we evaluate a lot of open source. We play with open source. I think the advantage of open source is obviously, as everybody knows here, right? We are able to, evaluate the technology, play with it, look at the pros and cons of the technology, and then, adopt it, right? And then obviously, that's one of the big advantages that open source gives us, is to basically evaluate a product, evaluate the technology, you know, do a and then they make a decision from there, right? So that's what open source gives us. And also we are a open source heavy company, and so we contribute back to open source as well, right? So back to the community. So there is a lot of GitHub repos that we basically contribute back to the community.
Very cool. And that kind of sparks the thought of like of the notion of attracting and retaining developers, right? You have a lot of complex challenges, complex problems, which are a key piece of bringing developers into like, hey, I've got some domain experience in this particular problem set.
Yeah.
What just in general of like, how do you think of these type of problems as a means of attracting and retaining the talent you have today?
So again, going back to my earlier answer, right? We are not in the business of building patterns, right? I mean, well, yes and no to that answer, but basically, if you look at software development, right? You have to worry about event sourcing, you have to worry about CQRS, you have to worry about state management, you have to worry about compensation controls. A lot of those things, the developer is not really interested in understanding all that, right? And then secondly, yes, you will find smart people who understand all that, but then in general, an average developer doesn't care, right, or doesn't know about these things, right? So you want a solution which is basically going to abstract all of that away and make the developer just focus on writing business logic, right? So that's essentially what we are trying to do.
Yeah, and you guys have done a great job, and we've been a part of where you have a product owner, a line of business represented at the same table with your designer, with your developer, making sure that the features they're working on deliver business value and not focused on that custom retry handling, exception, compensation controls, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to see that. Kind of going back to the open source versus commercial solution, it is known for its commitment to open source technologies. But how do you weigh the benefits of open source versus maybe off-the-shelf commercial offerings?
Yeah, like I said earlier, right? Open source allows us to tinker with the product, tinker with the solution, allows us to build customizations. We have a lot of customizations that we need to build. Things like, we have our own authentication mechanism, we have our own security mechanisms within the company, we have our own encryption mechanisms, right? So all of those things we essentially need hooks to be able to allow us to customize those things, right? So if you take an off-the-shelf commercial solution, those hooks usually will not exist, right? With open source, we are able to customize that software specifically for us, and and then and contribute back to the community as well, right?
Yeah. It jumps off to when you think about we go back to the sheer volume and the number of payments and the number of products that you're also managing and trying to build sort of a standardized way of modernizing those payments, right? This isn't just upgrading pieces of your technology. It's
and I was thinking about Nexus yesterday, right? So and Nexus is a perfect example of how we can standardize things, right? So we, as part of our payments process, we have to go through a fraud service, we have to go through funding, we have to go through settlement and all of that, right? All of those are distinct services that you can basically abstract that out and put it as a Nexus service and basically allow the whole firm to use it, basically, right? So right now those things are not there. Those things are all part of monolithic applications built over many years. So as part of our modernization, what we are trying to do is take those things and build them as domain-based microservices, and and tomorrow we can take that and basically build that as a Nexus service for everybody to use and consume.
Yeah. You touched on it. And I feel like for to make the attorneys back home happy, there's these are opinions not necessarily representative of the firm, but also touching on the regulatory compliance. Like I think it's important to note that that's all.
Compliance is a big deal for a bank, right? I mean, I think you have to make sure that you have audit requirements, you have compliance requirements, you have data retention requirements, you have observability requirements. So all of those are part of your payments process, payments lifecycle. So any solution that we pick has to have those capabilities baked into the solution, right? So like Temporal has a very powerful observability catalog with a bunch of metrics emitted, and then so observability, compliance, data retention, all of those things are important for us.
Yeah. And maybe talk about this. It sparked a thought that this is part of, again, this is a long journey that the JPMC is a part of. There's a ton of public information out there about the stated goals of, hey, we have near term to JPMC is 1 to 3 years, right? That's the fastest that we can do things. And we have, Lori talks about things that are on the 8 to 10 year horizon. You have a very strategic investment in AWS as you're looking to get out of your private data centers and into the cloud.
Yeah.
How does CCB, how does your division sort of fit into that?
We are within CCB. CCB is for people. It's basically the consumer bank, which is Chase.com. So we are on a path to moving away from our private data centers to the public cloud, to AWS in specific. And we have a very aggressive timeline. And as part of that timeline, we are also, like I mentioned, modernizing and bringing in new technology like Temporal and baking that into the modernization journey, basically. As we go along in the cloud, we are basically going to use Temporal solution for rebuilding the whole payments process.
What about some of the things that as a consumer, a regular user of your mobile app, what about some of the products that most excite you within the CCB portfolio? You've got, things like Pay and
Yeah. So there are a lot of new products that are or add-ons that are coming in now, right? Chase is investing a lot in like travel capabilities like Frosh. They bought a company called Frosh, and then they bought a company called CX Loyalty for travel-related stuff and dining-related capabilities, basically. So as part of your consumer, the core business is basically expanding into things like dining services, travel services, and then we have now you can pay a loan or pay an installment through Pay in N capabilities like Pay in 4 or Pay in N or whatever, right? Yeah. So those capabilities will be something that is going to be added in the next few years. And I think what we are trying to do is whenever these sort of greenfield projects are coming on board, we are basically taking that and then moving them into the cloud and integrating things like Temporal into the whole ecosystem, right? So it's not, so we are trying to basically take a greenfield project and then migrate that and modernize that as we go along.
Yeah, it sparks a thought because it's an important difference. A lot of folks are maybe used to just straight, hey, we have a net new development, we're building a new product, we're bringing it to market, we're getting validated user feedback, and we're going to continue to do more of the things they like, less of the things they didn't like, and continue to go. That's one stream for you. The other part of this, you have a ton of legacy payment products and integrations that are required as part of this as well. So it becomes complex quickly.
So that's a good point, actually. If we are not so Temporal, for example, right? It's a very good solution for not just greenfield applications, but for existing like legacy brownfield applications, right? So you don't have to necessarily refactor the application and build them into microservices or whatever, right? You can take your monolithic application and integrate Temporal right into it, right? without any issue. So I think that works well because you can now take a monolithic application and add durability into it without a major refactor.
Yeah. Yeah, the Zell team speaks to that a ton, right? When they, I think one of the product owners said that, when Jamie's Diamond's, nephew can't process a Zell payment, he's the one that hears about it.
Yeah.
And then,
Exactly. So reliability, availability, resiliency, these are all like key things. I mean, one of the reasons we are going to AWS is because of, the reliability and availability, but then also we need the durable execution that comes with Temporal, right? So, yeah.
I think one of the last things I'll say, it's more of a recognition for, any of the folks that may be listening to this or in the audience, like a phrase that that Rajesh and I share often with one another is the requirement of practicing strategic patience and the amount of time that it takes to implement what will ultimately be some wholesale changes, within the bank because of just the sheer size of it. So it's more of a call out to you and your team that have gone on that journey.
We've been in this Temporal journey for like a year and a half. As you know, with a big bank, it takes a lot of process. We have different like architecture committees and stuff like that. So we basically went through a very comprehensive evaluation. We put out documentation. We went through this technology architecture forum, presented Temporal, got a unanimous approval actually, which is nice. And now we are in a stage where we are moving forward and building our applications.
Yeah. Any other closing remarks? Anything that as customers or consumers that are new cool things? Any sneak peek of you said Pay-in and some of the lending innovation? Anything that Chase customers should know that exciting products you're working on that you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm not a product guy, but then I know there are a lot of cool things that are coming with the acquisitions like travel and dining and Pay-in and all of those features. And all of those things in the next few years are going to be part of the Chase app. So, if you're not a Chase customer, it's a good time to sign up for a Chase account.
That's yeah. It's So it's been fun. It has been interesting at times, but moving from evaluation to implementation and just bringing teams along. It's interesting how our session, our workshop the other day, right? We've got infrastructure automation teams, identity access management teams, payment teams, all sort of coming together and getting to know one another through this process. So it's there's always a cultural aspect, I guess, is what I think we'll leave folks with.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it right? Strategic patience. I think we are not a startup, so we are not as nimble. We'll move slow, but then we ultimately make the right decision. It takes time. So I have had to learn, to go through the process and basically, get all the right approvals and all of that stuff, right? So it takes time, but I think at the end of the day, we do the right thing.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard that. Top down, bottom up, inside out. It's a process. So thank you for the continued sponsorship and help. And we're only just getting started.
We are only getting started.
It's only day one. So
absolutely.
Thank you for being here, Rajesh, and thanks to your team.
Thank you, Rob.
Cheers.
Thank you, Rajesh and Rob, for that engaging conversation. Everybody, give them another round of applause.
Thank you.